I'm Margaret in Windsor, and this is to show how I'm, so I know which one to put up. Um, anyway, I'm going to turn it around here. I'm not sure you can see me, but I don't have all the things other than the information to put up in a phone that's not very good, or videos, way to make them. I wanted to put this up. I thought I had three of them, and my access to the internet's been curtailed, to say the least. So I hope I get this up, because a lot of things are going on now that are bad. My life has always been bad. I was kidnapped in 41 at age 2, brought to Moulton, Alabama, given the name of a twin that was murdered. The twins were born out of wedlock, and Carl was, I believe, about a month after he was born. He was murdered and buried in a box. It was winter, so no autopsy, no nothing. And then Peggy lived till about 2 weeks before I was kidnapped. She was fed to the pigs, so there's no anything of her left. Somebody asked me, was she alive or dead? I don't know. I do know she was fed to the pigs. And a couple of weeks before I was brought there, so my kidnapping was planned, and Jeff K helped in it, and it's who my dad is, Edward the Eighth, that told the truth, couldn't be bought, so they took him down, and they had him. History still tells you he married Wallace Simpson. She's the American Spy. She married one of the doubles, and there were several. My father was married to Claudia Ruth O'Keefe, my mom. I was born in 39, kidnapped in 41. The day I was born Victoria II, Queen of England. My father had made arrangements and papers that when they forced him out, and that's what they did, the plot to take him down, he had an addendum that went through channels. If he had an heir, the heir would inherit. And the minute I was born Queen Victoria II, which would have brought my father back as power of attorney and guardian for me. So now then they had to get rid of me. The Illuminati, Rockefellers, Rothschilds, Bilderbergers, Kennedys, Joe Kennedy. Isn't it an irony that 1936, when my father becomes king, he's appointed ambassador to England by Franklin Delano Roosevelt, the president, Illuminati. So now then JFK flew in there during 39, and I was kidnapped in 41. He even spoke before Parliament there. This is JFK. This kept in my kidnapping. Now I want to get to this. I've written about, I wrote about mind control murder I started writing in 76. And since I've put all this up, I'm going to just cut to the chase now. Just about every crime in the book has been committed against me and my children. And God knows I hope they're alive and well. This involved conspiracies and cover-ups, and then to cover that up, and staff that knew all about the crimes in different departments and in areas of this through my life, because I couldn't get an attorney. It's like laws piled up on top of laws that were broken. Federal, every kind of law. It is so hideous that it was allowed to happen, and it's still ongoing. I put up here about almost being killed April Fool Day, and 80, and illegally taken across the state line by Lionel Dempsey, pushed in the car, and I hardly ever saw my kids again, and now then I don't know where they are. I had a letter from the FBI, ongoing investigation, national security involved, so it's been ongoing crimes. I can hardly hear right now. I've been around mold, mildew, and subjected to toxic fumes in where I've been made to live. It's been deliberate. And my eyesight has gotten really bad. I have, I guess what I wanted to say was when I left Mr. Flint's, I ran in a campaign to replace Congressman Dr. Larry McDonald, one of them that I wrote about in the book. And later, I'm skipping all the hell I went through, and crimes, and being raped and put on the side of the road, and even had a divorce that they would not enforce. When I tried to get it enforced, this supposed new wife tried to help have me murdered. And her name was Twyla. She goes by Childers, I think. She lives in, I believe, Gulfport, Mississippi, and she has a policy when he died that belongs to me in my divorce papers and anything else he might have had. So now back to this. I wrote about doctors, and I was in the campaign to replace Larry McDonald, who supposedly went down on the KAL back August the 31st of 83. And by the way, people care about Diana when she was just as much a part of this low life, the conspiracy and the cover-up and the robbery as anyone. She died 10 years later on August the 31st. 10 years later, that was 83. So did she die in 93? It was 10 years later, I believe, on the same day. Anyway, Larry McDonald was that I'd written about, he was a doctor, was supposed to have gone down on the KAL from Juneau, Alaska to Seoul, South Korea. Instead, Nixon, who's very much a part of all this, with 18.5-minute gaps in Henry Kissinger's State Department and Defense Department head over those years. It's who they were trying to kill. It's on 18.5-minute gap. Anyway, what are the chances? Nixon's on this very plane. He's taken off, so they know it's going down with 296 or 286 people aboard, all around. Geraldo, the reporter, was on it. He got off. And others say that, other than me, that Larry McDonald was taken off too. They took the whole plane down to make it appear that he was dead and on it. So I was in the campaign to replace him, flown out to Mr. Flint's Hustler magazine. He'd been shot in Lawrenceville when I was doing the book, Georgia, near me, by a program shooter, just like George Wallace and John Lennon. Mark David Chapman was programmed to shoot him. And I was working for the district attorney, Fred Simpson, when that happened in 80. Now then, I want to get to this because this involved doctors from way back, let me put it that way, and the cover-ups and diagnosis. It was murder, really, and none's been addressed. None of the crimes were one on top of the other. And let me get back to this. For whatever reason, when I left Mr. Flint's, because these were mind control murders done in patterns, Tesla files that were stolen, but they were done in patterns. When I started to leave Mr. Flint's in October, I'd been out there twice. He helped me in that campaign in 83. He did this role-playing bit, no room in his, he lived in Bel Air. Sonny and Cher had owned the house, just for trivia here, prior to him. Anyway, first time I was out there, he took me right directly to the lily pad room. And the second time and last time I'm out there, he takes me around. I'm pushing him in a wheelchair. There's no rooms available in his home. So I mean, that's odd. He invited me out there. So I said, well, I did have a little money then. I said, well, I'll go get a motel. And he said, no, he finally put me in his daughter's room. So I slept a few hours. And before I left that day, as I was leaving, he introduced me to a movie producer. And he said to me, there's no room in the inn. Now, I don't know, is that INN or END? Anyway, all this has been, I've been kept homeless, crimes stacked on top of crimes. I'm allergic to chemicals. So chemicals have been deliberately distributed and put on my beds. I've been forced to live in motels most of the time. The HUD was the same thing. The people that run HUD committed federal crimes and all this. And today, I've always paid my rent on time. Today, I cannot go out and get even HUD because I can't get it into court. And these people who were involved in it, the managers and the office staff, they've all gone along with it. And it is so hideous. But until it gets into court, I can't hear right now. I've lived where there's mold and mildew, and it's bacterial ear infection. My ears pop all the time. This one burst and was bleeding, so I went to my primary care, and she did give me, because the doctor couldn't see me for 10 days, the ear doctor she was going to refer me to. So she did give me an antibiotic then, but it was never cleared up. I'm still subject. I've had to live with this mold and mildew, bad, and other toxic fumes. I have an autoimmune disorder. I'm allergic to chemicals. And when I'm force fed them, which is what it's been, it attacks my immune system attacks itself, and that's pretty bad. I wasn't quite like the bubble person, which now, the other day I heard they have a cure for your immune system. Now, I don't know if it has to be done when you're born, but they have a cure for it now. But anyway, in this whole thing, staff's got involved, like with the HUD, like in my residence, where if you call it residence, trying to get a home to get me off the mountain where I went to, just to have a place to be and get off the side of the road, walking from one town to the other, begging and being raped and subject to being killed. Now, it just gets into law after law. Now then, recently, I was telling about mind control murder. So this goes back to my bladder became detached back in '80. I had it tacked back up, and it fell again. Now my primary care knows it, and I always knew it. Now then, I've put this up tapes about Nathan Boyle. He lived on Windsor Street, Windsor. That's my last name, my real last name. Now I think he worked and did favors or whatever for the police department. Met him on the trail, and he offered to help me out in that if I needed a ride to pick up groceries, or there were times when I was so sick from fumes where I lived that he would take me out to camp and just let me out, and he did help carry my things some during those times. And there was other times that some really bad stuff was done to me. I don't know if he was involved in that or not. Anyway, I'm going to jump to May the 6th. This gets involved in it. He brings me back. I've been living in a motel. Been there a while. Same people owned it on this one until recently. Anyway, he usually, if it was grocers or just bringing me back from camping, he would help bring something in, and he'd leave always. This time he pulled out the ottoman at the door. My phone happened to be there, and he grabbed it. He had bought me a Coke in Bojangles dinner on the way back, bringing me back. And he handed me my drink, and I tried to get my phone back. I wanted it back because the videos that were on it. And I had turned the video over about black mold and all that to Channel 7. Of course, they're not going to touch any of this. Trump's right. They're Illuminati. The very people that kidnapped me control it. All your press. And anyway, the last I remember, he wouldn't give me my phone back. He said, "You want your Coke?" He handed me my Coke. It was from behind him. I didn't think anything about it. And I took a sip or two, and I went out like a light. The last I knew, his face and head looked like it was squatting and round. looked like a caricature or something, and his hair down the middle was parted and cut weird. It parted. It was just weird. That's the last I remember. Till the next morning, I'm sitting on the bed at 3:30. Now this is 7 o'clock, and I've turned videos over about black mold to Channel 7 and other stuff what's been happening to me, and they know it about the mind control murders. Even one of their staff was shot by a program shooter, and nobody tells the truth about any of it. So anyway, I was abducted that night, and Nathan was a part of it, and who I believe was an investigator. He was in on it, my abduction, and they took me to a Carilion clinic, and I was later called, or I might not have put it together, three different times that following week, and said, well, we didn't charge you, you were here after hours, and we didn't charge you for the visit. Well, I called them back to make sure it was the right number, Carilion, and it was. So was my primary care there, and is that the reason for all the sudden cover-up and what's going on now? You tell me, because I was never told about the heart arrhythmia I have because of the way I've had to live. My decision-making was made to be correct because it has never, the crimes, been brought before a court of law, been denied any attorney or anyone of my defense. So therefore, my decision-making is being used against me because you don't have all the facts and they can get away with it. So what happened that night, I was taken, I don't know, it's not in, well, it's probably in Roanoke County, the clinic is. But anyway, the video that I had sent about the black mold and everything had been taken. The manager where I was living told me, alerted me. So Nathan stole it that night and then helped abduct me, and who I believe was a investigator for one of the families that their daughter was killed. And the man that was programmed, it was a mind control, is in prison up in, well, he's convicted up in Fairfax, Virginia. Anyway, he's in prison. And so that night that they did that to me, May the 6th of 2013, the manager actually told me the video was deleted, and I'm telling a lot of background so you get it, and then I'm being redundant. And I don't have enough time on here, so I'm just going to say that. I called Robert, who is U.S. Marshal. He's, the people will say they do switch hats. They're not separated. Alcohol, tobacco, and firearms are all the same. And I called him. I was given a number, and he's been up on the mountain with me up there many times when I had to camp out, have a place to be. I called him. I could call this number, and it would answer Dylan, and they would have him call me back. Dylan as in Marshall Dylan. So now then, he called me back, and I said, Robert, what did they give me, truth serum or what? He said, no, they put something up in you. Well, okay, I'm going to leave it there because this gets into what's going on lately. My primary care has always known the truth about what's my autoimmune disorder and what's being done to me. And I've put all this papers to support it on videos and everything. But who's watching? I can't get an attorney either. So now then it's boiled down